So what we are going to cover is the opportunity for the 50% wage subsidy and the conditions and the exclusions. Because, of course, like anything, there are some fishhooks in it. There's also a bunch of other funding that's linked. So once you unlock the 50% wage subsidy, you can unlock other funding. But we're not going to talk about any of this current short-term COVID relief. This is additional to that and was actually set up before this. The nice thing about it is that you are perfectly allowed to double dip. So unlike when JobKeeper was around, you couldn't get this and JobKeeper. With this one, you can claim this, plus you can get the 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever it is that your business is being offered by your state government. So I will explain to you how to know if you're eligible or not, what it is. Why are we doing it? Because this is our area of expertise. We are consultants, we are claiming it ourselves. I have every single one of my employees now on this wage subsidy. The reason that we're doing this for free is that once we've shown you how it works, you, sorry, I can't spell. I'm supposed to say you may get us to help you risk-free, or you might choose to do it yourself. If it's simple, if your version of it turns out to be simple, then do it yourself. If it's more complex, then you should probably get us to help. But I'll talk to you about that at the end. And the other thing with my little angry face emoji is that the big companies are claiming it all, as always happens with these things, because big companies have internal resources who can understand bureaucracy and navigate the system and claim this money. And, you know, the rest of us are always last in the queue. So a little bit of background to this, just so you understand the context and what it is. In the end of last year, remember 2020, JobKeeper was coming to an end, and there were some flaws in JobKeeper, as we know. For those businesses that were eligible for it, employees got paid whether they worked or not. I mean, that's not a flaw if you're an employee, potentially, but it didn't add any value. It didn't upskill anybody. It didn't improve the business. It was certainly great for holding patent and a great stimulus for the economy, and it did its job. But there are a number of reasons that, you know, government hasn't wanted to reinstate it in the same way that it has, not least of which all the whole big companies grabbing a lot of it thing. So at the beginning of October last year, they introduced this scheme, and you might have heard of it, and the name is deceptive because it's called Boosting Apprenticeship Commencements, which immediately sounds like it's for tradies, and it immediately sounds like it's only for new employees, and neither of those things are actually true. That is really important because people get this wrong, and people get advised wrong even by various officials in the system. It's certainly easier for new staff, but it's not just for tradies. It's a training subsidy rather than a tradies subsidy. So in October, the government came out and said, if you're willing to put your person on an accredited course, a Cert 3 or a Cert 4 or a diploma or whatever, and they had a long list of what was eligible, then we'll pay half their wages for you for 12 months. And so, of course, as you would expect to happen in these situations, of those 100,000 places that they made available, 70,000 of them got taken up by big companies within October. They just went and put all their workforce on it and just grabbed it all. So then end of October, they tightened up the criteria for existing workers and said, hang on a minute, if you've already got staff and you're already going to keep them anyway, maybe we don't want to be throwing money at everybody. Let's concentrate the existing worker courses on things that are important to our economy, but let's make it really open for new hires and things like that. And I will explain to you the criteria for a new hire because it is a bit broader than you might think. And there are a couple of courses that are still, one in particular, that is still useful for existing workers in real estate agencies, so we'll talk to you about both. I'll talk to you about how you can put all your new people on this as they come in. Basically, anybody that you hired 3 months ago till now, or through till the end of March, you should be getting a 50% wage subsidy for them, which, you know, since a lot of real estate agencies are now having to pay minimum salaries to people, this is a good opportunity to get half of that back. So they tightened up the existing worker criteria, but there was still 130,000 places used up by May this year, and they originally were supposed to only be 100,000 of them. So when the federal budget came out, it was starting to make the economy look pretty good. You know, unemployment was going down, all those sort of things. So they opened up 170,000 more places. They put an extra $2.7 billion into it, and they extended the deadline until March next year. Now, that's the deadline to get signed up. So if you sign up on the 28th of March next year, you're still going to get a 12 months wage subsidy for your person from that date. And that is assuming that they don't run out of those places. Like, they've called it uncapped, but then they've said there's 170,000 places. So I think it's one of those things where if you've got some people, the sooner you get on in case they change the rules again, the better. And as you might have noticed, our economy is not terribly stable at the moment, so policies change all the time. Now, as I mentioned, it is called Boosting Apprenticeship Commencements. But that is because this scheme is being administered as part of the existing apprenticeship and traineeship scheme. But it is different. It hasn't been done. This is a new scheme. It's not the existing traineeship program. It's on top of that. And what it does is if you're a business, a charity, or a council, you can get reimbursed up to 50% of wages if you enrol a person in an approved course to a maximum of $28,000 over the year. So it's paid over 12 months, it's capped, and it's paid quarterly in arrears. So you basically lodge your pay slips, they give you back half what you paid, up to $7,000. Now, I do want to emphasise that this is for some existing workers and a lot of pretty much all your new workers unless it's a CEO or something, because somebody's got to be supervising them to be able to train them. Now, most people think existing workers are not eligible, including some of the agencies that process this stuff, but I'll show you where to find the rules and the code that you can claim, and I'll show you some examples of ones that we've actually successfully claimed for people. Now, here is just a little bit of government thing to show you what it is. So this is the documentation. If you want to Google it, it's called Boosting Apprenticeship Commencements. This was updated during the budget, said they put another 2.7 billion. And you'll see on the third line from the bottom, it says, encourage employers of any size or industry to take on new apprentices and trainees. And the key word there is trainees, because there are a lot of courses that fall into the traineeship category, including most of the real estate ones, as you probably know, but also business courses and safety courses, things like that. So it really is a win for everybody. You know, the government wins, makes unemployment better, boosts the economy, gives employers access. Well, beneficial for employers in two ways. The obvious way, obviously, is you get some subsidy. The other way, though, is that in this time where it's actually hard to get skilled people, you can either upskill them yourself or you can retain people because you're giving them the opportunity to upskill. And so from the employee's point of view, and I know there's been changes in real estate qualification requirements and things, and most people have already got through that and requalified. But if you've got new people coming in with the industry somewhat booming, then it's a chance to get them through. So eligibility for employers is state and federal governments are not eligible, but all other businesses are. Sole traders aren't, for the same reason that CEOs aren't. You've got to have somebody there that is supervising you. But any location across Australia, any type of industry, any business size, this bit's important, full-time or part-time staff. And I will explain in a moment how your part-time people can be eligible for all the new worker courses if you upgrade, like say you upgrade casuals to part-time or part-timers to full-time. Australian citizens are eligible, permanent residents are eligible, and New Zealand citizens who've been in the country for 6 months or more. So this is different from a lot of the other stimulus stuff where us Kiwis weren't allowed. You might be able to tell by the sophisticated way that I pronounce my vowels that I'm not originally from here. And professionals and experienced staff are eligible too, as long as they're doing some sort of upskilling and qualification. So, you've got an office manager who's been there for 10 years. You could put them on one of the short list of existing worker courses and you could get a wage subsidy for them for the next 12 months. I'll explain that to you in a moment in a bit more detail. If questions are coming up in your mind as you go, feel free to pop them in, and then I will make sure I do get to them, because I know you're busy and I'm going through this as quickly as I can without making it not make sense. So we did a quick calculation if you needed any more motivation. If you've got 5 people that you can get this for, and say we couldn't find you a free course for them to do, and we probably will be able to find you a free course, but there are some that you do have to pay some fees for. Even if you paid like the maximum course fees for every single person, you're still going to end up with over $100,000 extra in your pocket over the 12 months. So, it's not to be sneezed at. Plus, there are a whole bunch more incentives once you get this one. So if you put people on this scheme, because they are technically trainees, you can get payroll tax rebates, you get work cover rebates. In a lot of states, every state's got slightly different rules, of course. There's also a whole bunch of other state incentives. So one of the people that's working for me, say she's on $56,000 a year. I get $28,000 back as part of this, no pun intended, back subsidy. So that's a 50% subsidy. Then because she's in Queensland, in a certain postcode, and she's under 25, I get another $20,000 from the state government for her. So the wage subsidy is from the federal government. The state gives me another $20,000. And then because I've put her on a course, and she hasn't completed a qualification before, I get another $4,000 from the state government. So all up, it's the whole year's salary costs me $4,000 plus superannuation. So there are all kinds, and most of the states have got extra incentives for people under 25, over 45, whatever, women returning to the workforce, things like that. So once you get this one, it usually unlocks a bunch of the other subsidies for you as well. You just have to know where to go and look for them. Okay, pause for breath. A couple of interesting statistics on these claims, because people have this perception that boosting apprenticeship commencements is for trade apprentices. So far of the, was it my cat flying in the background? Just ignore that. So far of the claims that have been made so far for the 180,000 or so that have claimed it there, 60% of those have not been in traditional trades. 40% of them have been in small businesses, which is a big improvement on what was happening with it last year. And 20% have been for employees over 35. So this is not just for kids. It's not just for young people. It's not just for inexperienced people. If you've got someone who's got experience and wants to go to the next level in their qualifications, you can still put them through. And the industries that have used the most of it, the fastest, have been construction, probably because they've already got infrastructure for apprentices, so they understand how this works. And then accommodation and manufacturing, which I thought was interesting. Interesting, I don't know how you guys are finding it in real estate, but I had a look a couple of weeks ago on Seek, and I'd looked in May last year, and there were like 20-something thousand jobs being advertised Australia-wide. Like this was in the peak of the uncertainty about the pandemic, really, in lockdown, first go. A couple of weeks ago, there were 180,000 jobs being advertised, and 54,000 of those were paying over $100,000 a year. So, and as you know, I mean, I think real estate has always been like this, isn't it? It's always been competitive to try and get good people. So if you can get an extra 28,000 wage subsidy when you're hiring somebody, and even if you end up paying them a bit of that, you're still going to be ahead, and it makes you a bit more competitive as the employer. Right. Existing employees, the bit that gets confusing. How do you know if you are eligible or not? So here's a quote out of the policy that says, an existing worker is only eligible to get this wage subsidy where the existing worker, the first point, commences in a trades-based Australian apprenticeship. So that is why, obviously, people immediately think, oh, it's only for tradies. That's what it says. But when you go and look at the source document, there's a document called Appendix I, which is the list of trades-based Australian apprenticeships. And there's a 13-page list of courses on there. And that includes all the traditional trades plus other random things like greyhound training and things like that. But it has also got some courses in there, like, for example, Certificate 4 in Workplace Health and Safety. So if you're a real estate agency, you've got a few staff, it would be quite reasonable of you to say one of our people should have some training in health and safety. I mean, especially in these pandemic times, but just with the general safety risks of being a real estate agent and doing appointments and open houses and things like that. Basically, you just have to be able to justify that this is a useful course for your person to do. You can't do some, you couldn't put your real estate agents through beauty therapy or something unless they were actually going to be doing beauty therapy treatments on the clients. There's an idea. So there are a couple of courses on there that you should be able to get at least one person through on that, even if it's your office manager, but somebody who all they have to be willing to do is a Certificate 4 in Workplace Health and Safety, do it online, whatever. It's possibly free depending on where they are, which state they're in. If it's not free, it's not terribly expensive, and that would give you a wage subsidy for the existing worker. Then, of course, if somebody goes from casual employment to part-time or full-time, or from part-time employment to full-time, then they count as new workers and they are eligible for a whole bunch more courses, which I'll show you in a second. So the hardest bit is for existing workers, but there are ways of getting at least some of your staff through. Some of the companies I've done some work with have got whole groups of people through on these health and safety, or there's an environmental sustainability one, which is another one, and they haven't been businesses that you would consider to be traditional safety type businesses. So there is an opportunity. It's a bit of work to organise, which is probably why you want to get us to do it on a success basis rather than waste your time with it if you've got things to do like houses to sell. So here's just a bit more blurb about it, and that you've got to code it, right? So there's a bit of tricky stuff, like you've got to say what's the occupational outcome going to be, etc., etc. But as long as you get the coding right and the thing right, then you can claim it. Here's one we prepared earlier. This piece of paper is what comes back from the state government once it's been approved. So in this case, they were doing certificate for in civil construction supervision, but you can see that they were a existing worker, and they're just below that second black bar on the left there, and they'll get a wage subsidy for that course. Not relevant to you guys for that specific course, but just to show you what it looks like. So here are a couple of ways that you could use the existing employee opportunity for general courses, and then I'll show you some new employee real estate opportunities. So if you've got somebody in HR or admin, you could put them on the certificate for workplace health and safety, but you could do it as a dual qualification, either with business or with leadership and management or something like that. So there's no rule that says you can't do it as a dual qualification. And then you can overlap, you can choose elective units that overlap, and the person comes out with 2 certificates and you get someone who's got a bunch of skills that are quite useful to you. So there's sort of 3 examples that we've put together, and those course options are out of that Appendix I, the government document that lists the existing worker approved courses. Now, of course, we're dealing with government, so the lists that we were showing you might change by next week, but at the moment, those ones are allowed and approved and are getting through. Now, real estate examples, and my colleague Rachel put this list together for us the other day. So there are, as you would know, because it's a requirement these days, there are a bunch of real estate specific qualifications, and then there are some other opportunities as well. The thing that's kind of cool in this is that even if, say you've already got somebody and they've already got their certificate for in real estate, they can do a second qualification and get the funding. So if you're hiring an agent from somewhere else and they're already qualified in real estate, then I would stick them through a certificate 3 in business or something like that. And it's not too much work for them. They're going to learn a bit of useful stuff, and you're going to get $28,000 towards their pay. So it's not mandatory that the course that they do is real estate based, as long as it's got some relevance to the job, or quite a bit of relevance to the job. So if you're hiring anybody new that doesn't have any of these real estate qualifications, as you probably know, you can get the course for free in most states, not in Queensland, good on us. But you can also, even if you have to pay for it out of the $28,000, you're still going to be, $20-something thousand ahead. You could put someone on certificate 4 in marketing, for example, or certificate 3 in business, or certificate 4 in leadership. So there are lots and lots of courses for new employees. This is just some examples. There's plenty more. But you could bring somebody into the business and put them through a leadership program or something like that, and put them through a genuine leadership program where you're actually developing their leadership skills, and get the wage subsidy while you're at it. Hopefully that makes sense so far. We're actually almost through the slides, and I do want to make sure we've got some time for some questions. But so if you've got a new employee, let me just make sure we understand the definition of that. That means if they're casual and they're going part-time or full-time, and which is worth thinking about actually, because if you've got anybody who works for you as a casual and has been working for you as a casual for a while, then you probably know that under most of the industrial relations kind of rules, the chances are they are really deemed to be part-time anyway. At some point in the future, they could come back and hit you up for holiday pay or whatever. All this requires is that if they go part-time, they have to be doing 60 hours over a 4-week period. In most states, Victoria is different. I think it's 13 hours a week or something. So as long as you're doing an average of 15 hours a week, if it was me, I'd be putting the casual to part-time and then getting 50% of their wages back for the next year. If they've started within the last 3 months, like if you've got employees who've already started, as long as they're under 90 days since they started, and as long as you start the process of this application within that 90 days, then you're eligible for them as well. So you basically can backdate it. What are we now? Beginning of August, you can backdate it to the beginning of May, anybody that started with you since then. And if they've been part-time, as in permanent part-time, and now they're going to full-time, then most of the time you can do the whole range of courses for them as well. I think New South Wales has got a limit of 12 months that they can have been part-time for and things. There's different states have got different limits, but generally there's a way to do it. Now, the thing to bear in mind if you're going to do this is that there's 3 levels of approval needed from the government point of view to make sure you choose the right course and the right provider. First of all, you need to choose something that's on the back program list. So that's the 2 lists. There's the existing worker list and the new worker list, and make sure that the course that you're choosing to put them on is on that list. Then you need to check with your state training authority and make sure that the course that you've chosen is the right kind of traineeship for that state. And check that it's on that list. And then the third thing you check is you find out who the training providers are who've got funding for that course, because obviously if you don't have to pay for it, that's better. And make sure that that matches the same course code as through the other thing. To make things slightly complicated at the moment, the federal government's in the process of changing and updating all these qualifications. So some states are using the old course code for the funding, but the new course code for back, blah, blah. Anyway, not exciting for you, but that's kind of what we do. So what you need to do before you claim, once you get your claim approved, it's pretty easy. The bit that's the lead up that takes a little bit of time. Figure out which courses are eligible for your business, your location. Think about any new staff and whether you want to upskill them. Think about any existing staff, what you want to do. Match your staff and qualifications and supervisors and things against the criteria. Find out what other benefits you can get, state-based incentives or other federal employment benefits. Find yourself a registered training organisation to do the delivery. Find one that's got funding. Choose yourself a apprenticeship support network, who are the people that actually do the physical sign up. I would just say on that, because this is growing so fast, because of the 100 and something thousand people that have been signed up, most of them are hiring new staff in their hundreds. I was talking to one the other day and they said, we've got 100 new staff starting on Monday, so we'll be better able to help you. So a lot of them are very new and very inexperienced and don't necessarily know the fine print that's in here. And I have had people come to me after the event who said, we got this far, we took it to the ASIN and they rejected it. So you need to make sure that you brief them properly in terms of give them the codes to fill in their forms, because some of them don't know. Some of them are really good and they do, but choose them a bit carefully. Then you just organise a sign up between your employee, the ASIN and your training provider, and then lodge your wage claim and lodge your claim for the other incentives. Now, we're referring to this as trainees, but they can be professionals. They can be accountants and things. They don't have to be, unskilled people. Now, we can help with most of that above if you want us to. I can tell you how in a second, or anyone who wants a copy of this presentation, if you just want to work through this list yourself, you are very welcome. So the easy part, once all that is done, is claiming the actual subsidy. It's very much like JobKeeper from that point. You just get a reminder by text and email from the federal government. You fill out a quick online form where you basically declare, yes, they're still employed by me. You upload their pay slips, and then the money lands in your account within the next 14 days or so. Now, this is paid in arrears, like the JobKeeper one was, but this is 3 months in arrears. So it's the financial quarter. So we're now in August. So anybody who stands up now would go in the July, August, September quarter, would mean at the end of September, you would get a link and you would upload the pay slips for your person that finished at the end of September, and then the middle of October, you would get that money for them. And then obviously at the end of the 12 months, you might have half a quarter at that end as well. So it all it comes through in the end. Now, if you have been wondering, a couple of questions that come up a lot. What if my employees don't pass the course, basically? Will you still get paid? You do still get paid. There's no, and it might turn out to be a mistake on behalf of government, but maybe there is no link between them passing or completing the course and you getting the wage subsidy. In fact, you don't want them to do it too quickly, because when they finish the course, so your wage subsidy finishes. So if they do the course in 6 months, then your wage subsidy will be finished. You could then enroll them in another one and do another again, but you would be enrolling them as an existing worker, so you'd have fewer courses to choose from. So some years ago when I did my real estate certificate 4, I did it in 1 week. Don't tell anybody. I'm sure some of you did the same. But don't do that in this case for lots of reasons, because apart from the fact you don't learn much, the funding will stop. So the other question is people will go, it's going to take a lot of time supervising them, training them and everything. You don't do the training. So you choose a training provider. Ideally, I would choose one that does online or phone-based, self-directed kind of training. And you are obliged to give people time in the workplace to do their assessments, but choose them to do real life workplace assessments. So if they're doing a unit on project management, for example, get them to manage a real project. And if that's an office person, it could be, a project of setting up a new software system or whatever. Get them to do that and make that into their assessment so that they're doing, useful workplace activities. So the supervisor just needs to be able to say, yes, I have been keeping an eye on this person and they have been proven that they do know how to manage a project now, or whatever it might be. Okay, so where do we fit in? If you want us to help, we can help. This bureaucracy is, I assume, not your core business. And I know that real estate is pretty busy right now. And we're in weird times, aren't we? That either everybody's crazy busy and business is booming, or it's completely fallen in a heap. There's kind of nothing in between for anybody really in these COVID times. You're either flying or you're crashing, unfortunately. And either way, you're probably really busy. Now, you are welcome to do this yourself. You're welcome to have a copy of these slides. If you've got like a question and you want to message it to us, we'll answer it for you. That's no problem. But I do keep running into people whose applications have been rejected because they were coded wrong or because they were given bad advice about how to lodge the claims, especially on the existing worker stuff. People keep getting told that you can't do it, and you can. We have done it and are doing it. So what I would suggest that you do is you get us to do all the setup. Probably like if you were eligible for JobKeeper, that's what your accountant would have done for you. And then once a quarter, you just need to upload your pay slips, tick the box, and you carry on with your core business. Because there's a bit of work up front, and because you don't want to spend all this time doing this work and then have it not work, or you don't want to pay us money and have it not work, we're basically saying we will do the work. We are going to know when we look at it whether we believe you're eligible or not, and so we're prepared to take the risk of doing the work based on your eligibility. So you don't pay us anything at all unless you get approved, and even then you don't pay us until you receive your first quarterly payment. So you just carry on with your core business. When the first grant money hits your account, you pay us 10% of your approved amount. You keep the rest and just carry on doing what you do, which presumably is not this. Not everybody enjoys this stuff. Who knew? So from here, the first step is for us to just do a quick assessment of your eligibility. We can do that two ways. We can send you a form and you can fill it in with just some information about your employees, your hiring plans, that sort of thing. If you're like me and you do not like filling out forms, which I know this sounds funny when this is my business, we can just interview you quickly over the phone and we can gather that information from the phone. Whatever's easier for you, you just tell us what you'd prefer. After that, then you can decide whether you want to proceed and whether you want to proceed and do it yourself or whether you want to proceed getting us to help. If it's a really simple one, like if you just got one person, they're a new employee for one course, it's an easy course to find, then we'll just tell you. And then if you've got the time to organise it, you can just organise it yourself. If it's more complex and we know that you're going to be better off to get us to do it, then we'll tell you that as well. Then you can make a decision. Now, like the rest of the world, we are currently all working from home. So, Alyssa, I might get you to pop your mobile number in the chat if that's all right. Or you can email Alyssa on that email and then she'll give you a call back because we're obviously all on our mobiles right now. So there's no point in giving you an office number. Now, I'm just going to pop back to the questions and see if anybody had anything. So Alyssa's put her mobile in there. Feel free to call me 0451 733 418. Thanks, Alyssa. Does anybody have any questions? Have I baffled you with science? Thank you for whoever sorted out the browser issue during the way that I missed that. I don't think we have got, isn't that funny? Real estate agents are more efficient with their time. It's a good question. Okay, good question. Any age limit? No, there is not. And one of my employees is over 60 and I'm still claiming the wage subsidy. So like I said, this is not for young people and it's not capped out. Some of them are capped at like 55 or whatever, but this one is not. It's actually available to everybody. Let me just see if there are any more questions. Can the courses for real estate take 12 months to claim the full subsidy? That's a very good question. Thanks for passing that one on, Alyssa. So, of course, if you're training an agent and you want them to do the agent's course, you probably don't want them to take 12 months to get qualified because you want to get them qualified quickly. They're not meant to be a 1 week course. Yes, they are supposed to take longer. And the nominal duration, which is the official duration, is 12 months. So the course is eligible. However, the practicality, you probably don't want the person to take a year to get qualified. So the good news is you can put them on dual qualification. So you can actually enroll them in a Certificate 3 in business or a Certificate 4 in business or something, funded, as well as the Certificate 4 in real estate, make the business one the traineeship, let them take 12 months to finish that, and get them to go through their real estate one really fast. Does that make sense? I can explain it to you. If that's your situation, I can explain it to you in a bit more detail. But basically, what we need to do is make sure that the course that they're doing as part of the traineeship, in inverted commas, not inverted commas, is going to last them for 12 months. So you would probably do a dual qualification with overlapping subjects and get through the real estate one as quickly as possible so they can get out and start making money for you, and take your time on the business one. Okay, great, thank you. I've got the response to say. That's good. Yes, so that's how I would probably tackle it. But there'll probably be more than one way. That's just the way that comes to mind immediately. Do we have any other questions? Is there a minimum time the employee has to take out of work to study? Some states have a requirement, like Victoria, I think, says that the person has to spend 3 hours a week of work time doing the courses. The 3 hours, though, does not have to be study in the way that we would think of study. It can be 3 hours of doing work-related tasks that relate to the course. So if you're doing a business course and one of the units is, about selling, you might get them to do 3 hours of structured cold call prospecting or something, and to get them to document that, and then that becomes their part of their course. So it doesn't have to be separate from their actual job. Got a question. Can you please give us a list of the eligible courses? Sure. Just shoot Alyssa an email and tell us where you're located, like what state and what postcode, and we will tell you what is eligible for your location, because, of course, every state's got different requirements, and then there's different funding for different postcodes as well. So just message Alyssa on the email address that's on the screen there, alyssaw@sagestrategy.com.au, and I will give her a list of courses that match your location. You can have a look and see if there's anything there that you'd think you'd want people to do. Any other questions? If not, what we might do, you're welcome. Oh, one more coming in. I'll just wait for this one, and then we will wrap up. And if you've got other questions, feel free to message them to us or whatever. Alyssa, are you passing on another question? No. Okay. Yeah, I'll give email Alyssa for the course list and she'll get that out to you. That's great. So thank you, everybody, for coming. I hope that was useful. Whether you get us to help you or not, I really hope that you do go and claim this. I'm on a bit of a mission to make sure that it's not just all claimed by the big companies, but some of us little guys get it as well. I'm getting my share. I want to make sure other people do too. Any questions afterwards? If you want a copy of this presentation, we'll send it out to you if you like, if you want to have a look at it later. But thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope that at least some of us are allowed out of the house soon. Take care and enjoy the rest of your week.